mobile device or your desktop, most of your devices have the ability to share location data or GPS information about where you're currently located at. And it allows you to search coffee shop near me, veterinarian near me, used car dealership near me. And so what that does is it creates that granularity of where you're looking, what you're searching for within that targeted area. So it's very important. Obviously, with the ability to use GPS and latitude and longitude tracking on most devices, tablets, cell phones, even your laptop has the ability to do location function through your internet service provider. And so this allows them to really refine and hone in what and or who they're going to show you when you're searching for something, whether it's a product, service, or an entity. What's really neat to point out about this is just how powerful and how significant near me search is. Google, this is a statistic directly from Google's Search Labs. They communicated that near me search has increased 34 times over since 2011. That's a significant exchange, even more so that it's doubled between 2014, 2015, and that same trend is continuing. So what this is telling us is that this fad is not a fad. It's become a new common normal. Okay, so we need to be able to be prepared for that functionality. We need to make sure that we're set up as a dealer and a business entity for people that are searching near me. Now, a lot of this has been boosted and pushed and obviously fueled by the abundance of mobile devices. Even when you get into the subprime and buy here, pay here entity, most of your customers probably don't even have a desktop computer and or internet connection at home, but they do have a smartphone. They've got a prepaid service plan through somebody, so they have internet. So their connection to the World Wide Web is through that mobile device. It's through that smartphone or tablet or whatever device that they have. And so because of that, voice search is the next big contributor to that function of fueling that movement. People are utilizing that device to do those searches of what is near them. So what does this mean? Well, to start with, we want to make sure that we review our websites as automotive dealers, no matter what industry you're in. If you don't communicate what you want to be found for, you're not going to be found for it. If I asked you to pick up the Bible right now and tell me where Waldo was, you wouldn't find him. He's not in there. Well, if you expect to be found for these types of searches, near me, closest, nearby, these are the ones you want to jot these down. You want to check with your website provider and review this. Make sure that they are not only included in the metadata, which is the important information communicated to the search engines about your website of who you are, what you do, and where you're located, but it needs to be found redundantly as well within the copy of your website. Okay? You can't just put it on the title of your book, it needs to be in your book. So on the pages of talking about us, services you provide, make sure that you include that verbiage in there as well. The other factor that's driven and pushed this trend of near me type searching obviously is that millennial crowd. I'm sure we've all come to know and understand at least who they are or what that entity or group is. It's that younger audience between 18 and 37. All they've ever known is the internet and a microwave oven. Okay, so those convenience factors fuel that side of the industry, and the reality of why this is so important for local search and voice search, it's because convenience now trumps loyalty. In reality, and that's no pun intended, convenience will trump loyalty. They'd rather use Uber than go buy a car and pay for insurance. Okay, this is the entity that we're working with as far as moving forward. So we want to make sure we understand that. So let's shift a little bit here. Let's talk about Google's 3-pack. Has anybody here seen what's referred to as Google's 3-pack, or the 3 featured results when you do a search on a desktop or mobile? Typically, it looks like it's within the map section. There's some star ratings. Anybody familiar with that? Okay. This has also become a very, very impactful component in search. And everybody's struggling right now to get into this grouping. People can't figure out why Google would pick or isolate 3 individual dealerships or businesses to showcase for this search. They don't understand what the variables are. There's an example that I pulled up just for this presentation. This was on a search that I did for dealerships locally here in Dallas. Well, guess who the first one is? That's my client. There's also 2 underneath it. One of them has a 1.5 stars. Why should I see a dealership that has a 1.5 stars in this holy trinity of search results, right? These featured ones. Why does he get to be there? Okay, well, there's a lot of factors that play into that, and that's what we're going to jump into here. The very first one that we're going to talk about is BDLs. Who's familiar with what a BDL is? Anybody? Business directory listings, right? You've probably seen hundreds of these things. They're constantly popping up. There's new ones all the time. It's basically, it's what's replaced the phone book, all right? You used to get the big giant phone books dropped off. Business directory listing is the same thing. It's the equivalent of that on the internet, but everybody's trying to create a new one all the time. Most cases, you probably never even filled out your information for these business directory listings, but they somehow seem to have your information or name of your dealership or maybe a phone number. Well, it's because these businesses, when they come into fruition, they scrape your data from other places that they consider to be reputable. Places where they consider, okay, well, I can trust and rely on this information, so I'll use it for me. Obviously, most of them are just designed simply to sell advertising space. The reason why this is important for you is that these are references to your business. You have an opportunity to fully take advantage of them. A link to your website, maybe a link to testimonials or reviews, your correct phone numbers for your service department. All of that information is available if you were to claim that business directory listing for your business and fill it out. Okay? A lot of the dealers that I speak with don't have the time to do that. So what I would suggest is that you crack into that a little bit further. There's a lot of options out there, and I'll cover that in just a moment. But this leads into my next point, which is the most important one here for business directory listings. Who's heard of GMB? Okay, Google My Business. It is the most important possible business directory listing you could ever come across. You know why? Because it's Google's. If you want to show up number one in Google, you should probably be using all of their services, wouldn't you say? Did you know that Google owns YouTube? Yeah, pretty large company entity. So if you want to start in the first place, you want to know where these other business directory listings are scraping their data from, well, guess what? Most of it's coming from Google and GMB. So if you have not yet started or created your GMB profile, which is completely free, it's very simple to do. You have to have a Gmail account, that's about it. Sign up for it and fill out your information. Guess what that's going to do? In most cases, it's going to trickle down to all those other business directory listings. You don't have to sit there going through them one by one. Okay? Probably a good place to start to be efficient. Think smart, not hard. Next is going to be local search in GMB. This is a quick screenshot here for you if you have never seen their site. You want to Google it as what it is, Google My Business. There's a lot of separate entities. People get confused with which ones are which. I'm going to show you a splash page here in a second with the whole holy trinity of Google products that you should probably already be using that are free. But that's a screenshot there of what it looks like. Now, the neat thing about this, obviously, is that Google's not going to go anywhere. If you have their business directory listing filled out, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So make sure you get that taken care of today. The next component that ties into these businesses or entities showing up in the holy trinity of those preview search result listings is reviews. How many of you here collect reviews frequently for your website? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So four of you are doing work to collect testimonials. Now, this is actually pretty common. The first thing that I generally hear from most dealers is the flawed philosophy as well. If I don't collect them, then I never have to deal with any bad ones, right? That's the motto. That could not be further from the truth. That is probably the worst possible thing you could be doing. Right now, all of your competitors, they're doing the dirty work, they're collecting the testimonials, they're working through it. And here's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. The simple fact of collecting the testimonial or making it apparent that you care and you're available, in most cases will thwart most of the bad stuff that you're gonna get. It's when you're hiding behind the facade and you try to put up that brick wall to prevent that is when you're going to get most of that negative feedback. So if you do not already have a plan in place, start working on collecting testimonials. And here's some additional information and importance as to why this is so important. 72% of consumers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations from real people. How powerful is that? We're dealing with an online digital age era where the consumer that's going to shop at your dealership not only has visited your website, but probably visited about 7 or 8 other websites. They've made their decision about who they're going to work with, what products they're going to buy before they've even picked up the phone and spoken with you. If you do not have that content available, you're missing out. 68% of consumers go to social networking sites to read product reviews. How many of you here at least have a Facebook profile page for your business? There's about half. Okay, again, this is completely free. Facebook does not charge you to have a Facebook profile for your business. If people are going to these places to look for reviews or see what other people are saying about you or see what's going on, probably a good idea to have that. I would suggest that you get that taken care of as soon as possible. If nothing else, at least Facebook. 90% of consumers say that positive online reviews influence their buying decision. 90%. That's huge. Why would you not have reviews? The next problem is, well, what do I do with this content? Now, I've started collecting reviews. Where do I put it? What should I do with it? You know, does it just float around? That's a great question. Obviously, there's many different places you can collect that. You need to look at which social networks you're utilizing. If it's just Facebook, are you using Facebook and Twitter? Do you have your own website? Do you have a landing page that's just for, kudos about your business and what you've done? You can decide what you want to do, but you definitely want to make sure that you know what areas are lacking the most, because the most important thing you can do here is, as you begin to collect and gather those testimonials, is make sure that they're getting placed where you need. And with that, what I would definitely suggest doing is tying in some type of a coaching card or some type of a progress statement, right? You as a dealer know the areas that you want to communicate about your business the best. Maybe it's the service department that you want some more feedback on. Maybe it's the sales team. Put together a couple coaching cards that focus on those specific topics, and when it comes time to ask for that testimonial and at the time of sale is the best you're going to get, do it while they're gassing up the car, pulling it around for the consumer to take hold of. That's the best opportunity you're going to get. Get it then. But give them a coaching card. Hey, could you let me know how we did today on this topic? Right? Have them laminated. Just have them sit on your desk. Could you give me a review on Facebook today for that? Could you give me a review on my website or Google? Let them do the work for you, but give them some guidance. The worst thing you could do is make it an ominous project for them to give you a review, right? Nobody wants to work on trying to think of what good things to say, but if you say, hey, let me know how I did in my service department and the sales process and how quickly we got you out the door today, guess what you're going to get? Awesome. Make sure you know and you coach them in that process. Next thing I want to talk about here is Google Maps. Who here uses Google Maps? I'm pretty sure all of us do, right? We've all used Google Maps to get around somewhere. How many of you use Google Maps for searching for products or services? Well, your consumers are doing it. There's two ways you can search in Google Maps, okay? From a desktop or a mobile device, you could simply be in Google, do a search for something and see listings and click on that. That would be a search that's tied into Google Maps. The other method, which is much more significant, obviously searches in Google and in Maps only make up about 15 to 20% of searches. What's more important is that search is done directly from Google's native app. That's the one you downloaded on your iPhone or your Android device or your Microsoft tablet. The actual native app, you can actually do a search in there. You don't have to just type in an address. The neat thing about this is that consumers are now more heavily reliant upon this because it's basically giving them a near me search instantaneously. Go to Google Maps and type in car dealership. Guess what? It already knows your geolocation, knows where your phone's at. It shows you on that map with pinpoints where those locations are. Makes up 70% of local search for Google. That's huge. So if we know this is such a significant place to be searching, how do we optimize for an app that people download on their phone? That's great. Let's talk about that for a second. Here is the holy group of products that you guys should be using. These are completely free. It's all Google, okay? You could probably Google it. You probably find them pretty easy, right? First is Google My Business. We already talked about that. GMB, Google My Business. Fill that out. That's your business directory listing. It's your profile about who you are, what you do, where you're located at. Google Reviews. Start collecting reviews. Make sure you're getting reviews in Google for those. Google Places. Another spot for you to communicate who you are, what you do, products that you sell, services you provide, industries that you cater to. Lastly is Google Plus. Who here knows what Google Plus is? Probably confused all these different Google things. For those of you who do not know, Google Plus is Google's equivalent of Facebook. It's a social network. You can have your business on there. The cool thing about it is you can even have private groups. How many of you have ever been afraid to post something up because mom's on your Facebook page, you don't want her to see it? Well, guess what? Google cured that with Google Plus because you could have private groups. You can do whatever you want. It's up to you. So it definitely caters to a different market, but if it's free, and Google likes it, and you can give Google more information, why wouldn't you, right? It's definitely something you should start using today. Now, we're going to shift gears here and talk about the second category that really is being heavily focused on with all these changes from last year with algorithm updates from Google, and that is voice search. How many of you guys here have ever done a voice search on your phone? About half of you, 3/4 of you. Great, awesome. Well, your consumers are doing that far more, okay? The reason we want to talk about this is that there's a huge push going on right now on a lot of things that are going to completely change the entire industry of search. You've probably used Siri, Cortana, or maybe even recently Google's Assistant. You've seen a lot of the ads for that. A quick note here, Google Assistant is the only service you notice that does not have a name. It's just an assistant. Google did that purposely. They felt that having a specific name for the entity made it too impersonal. They wanted it to be generalized. They want Google Assistant to be that. They want it to be the end all, and they want it to be the go-to for every function of your everyday life. And that's what Google has planned ahead for us. Essentially, do you remember the talking computer back in the day that Captain Kirk used to talk into, a little machine? Well, that's what Google is building. Okay? That's the direction we're headed. Now, if you guys don't already have a Google Assistant or a Google Home piece which uses Google Assistant, I'm sure you probably have a friend that's purchased one, or maybe it's the Amazon equivalent of that, Alexa. If you don't already have one, probably be a good time to get familiarized with it, even if it's just something fun in the office, because your consumers are utilizing it. And the individuals and dealers that get familiarized with this technology now are going to be best prepared for it moving forward. Now, how does this tie into the automotive industry? Well, it already is, and in many significant ways. Android has made a huge push for the past 6 or so years. You guys have probably seen Microsoft's system that was available in a lot of Ford vehicles. Okay, you could speak to it, tell it to play music, various different things. That was kind of the onset. That was Microsoft's system. They're beta testing with Cortana and some variables. Well, Android and Google has signed massive contracts with the world's largest auto manufacturer, Volkswagen Group. Okay, they own Bentley. It goes on and on and on. You know, regardless of what they're doing with fiasco-wise about their diesel situation, still the largest auto manufacturer in the world. They are integrating with all their premium models, Audi, Porsche, Volvo even has a contract with them. Hyundai has a contract with them now for all their Genesis vehicles. It ties in 100% all of the automation of the vehicle, all of the electronic features and controls that you can push a button for are now tied in with Google Assistant. Okay, pretty impressive stuff. On that same note, Microsoft with their Cortana system has continued to stay on board with GMC, Chevrolet Group, and Ford. Okay, but what's pretty interesting and neat about this is that Google's anticipated future for us of ease, that simplification we're talking about, making things simpler for us instead of more difficult, it's the future. It's the ability for you to tell your Google Home device to lock up the door and set the AC to a specific temperature, to walk outside and have your car door unlock for you as you walk to it, have it on and running, set to the temperature you want, and then have Google Assistant ask you if you wanted a pre-order for your Starbucks on the way to work. Okay, that's the future that Google sees with this technology. And with that, the idea that it has to be simple and easy is what that key factor is. And just for a little bit of comic relief here, we'll go ahead and if we can mic that up.
Like, hello, Lab.
Hello, Gary.
See? Hello, Pants.
Thank you, Fish, for being here.
But it's frustrating when things don't listen, especially high-tech things. Find Gary Busey.
Find Gary Busey.
But this new Amazon Fire TV listens to me and does exactly what I say. Gary Busey.
Yay! Amazon Fire TV.
Dang!
Awesome. Well, if it's easy enough for Gary Busey, then obviously it's easy enough for us. They say if it's not simple enough for a 6-year-old, that you need to go back to the drawing board, and that's essentially where Google's at. It's the same thing Amazon has done with their Fire Stick. Everybody's making a push. The reason why Amazon launched Alexa wasn't to compete with Google. It was to provide an audible outlet for people to buy their products. Right? Pretty interesting. Did you guys know that right now Google has just signed contract with Walmart, largest retailer in the world? Guess what you're going to be able to do with your Google Home? Google, I need a pair of socks. Guess where it's going to suggest you buy that from? It's pulling up from a specific partner. So that's the interest behind it. These were made to simplify distribution of products, services, goods. Now, wouldn't it be great if your dealership could be found and located through these methods, these simplified methods that everybody's going to be turning to and utilizing? It's a lot of change. It's a lot to take in. We're just getting to the point as automotive dealers, we're starting to figure out what SEO was. You know, what's happening next? Now we got to figure out this whole new beast of what's voice search, what's these other functions and features. So let's talk about that, break it down a little bit so we can wrap our heads around what it is. We can break voice search into two sides, two categories. The first is going to be voice search with a visual result, okay? That means you spoke to your desktop, you clicked the button, or on your phone, you pressed the button, you did a search, and it provided you a visual input, content on a screen. This is the key factor that separates these. You saw a list of results just like you normally would have searched for, but you did it with your voice. Oh, that's kind of clever, it's cool, it's fun, it's part of the process. It's not the entire process, okay? So the next one is, okay, well, what's the other side of that? And the other side of that is a voice search with an audible return. This is where things are getting really, really tricky, and even Google's kind of trying to figure out what to do with it. Let's think about this for a second. Even if I did a voice search and I saw visual results, okay, I can see those organic search results that I'm supposed to see, but Google still has an opportunity to advertise paid advertising spaces on that splash screen, right? Sometimes they're above or below, but sponsored ads can still be displayed. Well, as soon as I jump to a voice search, how many search results do you get back from that voice search? You get one. And guess which result you get back? It's the first organic position placement. You don't get 2 or 3 or 4. You don't get any of the paid advertisement spaces. You get the first organic slot. Now you let me say, okay, well, this is great for me. Obviously, for the consumer it is. But let's say you have a $10,000 advertising campaign marketing to different keyword searches and phrases in your area. And somebody did a voice search. You're nowhere to be found. You're not going to be found. Problem with that is that you're no longer in the first position in Google. And so what this has done is it's changed the methodology around. No longer is it physically viable to be on the first page of Google. You can't just be in that list of results because you're not going to be seen. It's created a shift in this paradigm, and now what it's being referred to as zero positioning, meaning that you have taken over and owned the first organic position in Google, because really that's the only way you're going to be found in any type of a voice search whatsoever. Otherwise you don't exist. And I think this infographic sums it up. The best place I had a dead body is on the second page of Google search results. You know why? Because nobody's going there. Okay? Now, we just talked about this briefly. You know, what does this mean? Okay, so as an advertiser, and all the money that you're spending with these pay-per-click and paid searches, it does negate you completely. So what do we do? What's Google doing about this? Do they have plans to address this and change this? Here's the shocking part. No. They have zero plan to make any adjustments or changes to this. I just got back from the SMX conference, which is one of the largest SEO and SEM conferences globally, just in June here. And it was pretty insane to see all of these heads of state from Google on stage basically pulling their hair out and say, well, we don't even really know. We're trying to figure out what this beast has become. They honestly didn't think that voice search was going to pick up so much momentum and become the entity that it has become, at least not in the short period of time that it has. And as of right now, there's no plan whatsoever for them to monetize any type of voice search whatsoever. So here's what that means for you. As we already have kind of begun to figure out and understand SEO and how to market our websites as automotive dealers in that arena, just when we thought things were stabilized, what's happened now is that all of these other industry people that were just relying on pay-per-click and paid advertising are now jumping out of the paid advertising arena into the SEO market because they all want to fight and compete alongside of you guys for that zero position spot. So what happened is our pool just got a whole lot more crowded, okay? So we're going to have to do a lot more to compete for that spot. So let's talk about how do we do that? How do we compete for that spot? Well, the first thing obviously is local search. If you focus on local search, you can help dominate that area. Most of your larger, bigger brands are going to do heavy paid advertising campaigns or looking for marketing on a national scale. They're not focusing on that local area. So as finite as you can get with those targeted local areas you want to market to with your SEO, it's going to be a huge key factor. The next thing, and I beat this thing like a dead horse, content is king. I don't know how else to say that. Google does not have eyes. It's a bunch of algorithms that scan your website and looks at content that you have on your website. It's words that you have on your website. If you do not communicate clearly and explicitly in the metadata, which is like the book title of your book, to Google, who you are, what you do, and where you're located, you get passed up in the indexing process. Even if you do communicate well in that book title or your metadata to the search engines and they pick you up in that indexing process, guess what they do next? They call your bluff and they scan through every page of your website, look at what content you have. And if you don't have enough content in your website that backs up what you claim that you're doing, and you claim that you sell in areas you claim you target, they blow past you. They stick you way down on the bottom rung of the ladder. So you as a dealer need to go through and make sure that your website has enough content in it to back that up. Make sure that you're using the words near me, nearby, nearest, that you communicate the terms and the verbiage that you sell and cater to within that copy, the About Us page, Why Us page. understand what it takes to buy from us page. Make sure that content's available for you. A lot of guys say, okay, well, Chris, that's great. I'm an auto dealer. I sell cars. I don't have time to write content, right? I did become a literary student. I sell cars. This is what I do. Well, that's great. You have plenty of opportunities out there to address that quickly. My quickest suggestion is to put some ads out on Craigslist. It's completely free to do that. Find some students at a local college that are in a literary study, right? I'm sure they'd be glad to put together some articles for you. Give them a list of keywords you want to target. Tell them how many words you want. I'm sure they'd probably rather eat some steak tonight than the top ramen they have sit on the shelf in their dorm. Help them out. You have a lot of opportunities in front of you. There's ways to get that content put together, okay? And then, kind of pushing through from there, the next thing is, okay, well, what do we do? How do we push forward? What do we take away from all this? We understand that there's been a massive amount of change on Google's side. We understand that the general public has completely and fully adopted the concept of local search. They've adopted the concept of voice search. It's not going anywhere. How do we maintain this? Well, we know that Google's still looking at things, still reviewing, trying to figure out how they're going to adapt to this, how they're going to process it. Who knows? They could potentially change algorithms around and maybe place some paid advertisements in front of certain products or announcements. We don't know yet. That's still yet to come. But what we do know is that right now, the people that have already adopted and adapted to these components of function of search that are already preparing for it are the ones that are already seeing the results. And if you don't at least put the groundwork down now to be prepared for this shift in this function in SEO tracing here, you're going to get left in the dust, hands down. You got to be prepared for that. So I think if you look back and review the things we covered, the various outlets that Google has available for you, free services that are available, content, reviews, all of these play a major role, and there's no one perfect recipe. I'm not going to tell you that 20% of this and 20% of that will work. You'll need to figure that out for your own market, but I can tell you, after reviewing our massive client base and what's happening in the industry, it is a perfect recipe of all of these components put together. And if you can focus on that, make sure you have enough content and reviews, you should be able to be in a pretty good spot moving forward with all of that. And just wrapping this up, as you guys all kind of struggle with, the rest of the industry to adapt to this zero positioning, kind of concept and algorithm, don't feel deterred. Obviously, it's going to take some work and some tuning to get you there. Everybody's in the same boat when it really comes down to it. Everyone's trying to figure this beast out at the same time. And if you were able to focus on your local market areas and keep that iron in the fire for that section, you guys should be pretty well good to go. And with that, I'm going to wrap back up here to my contact information. Again, as Beto mentioned, CEO of Auto Search Technologies. We are a website provider for the automotive industry, specifically catering to independent. If you don't know who we are, our name's on the lanyards here that you guys are all wearing around your neck. We have a platform which has no monthly fees. We're a little bit different than everybody else. We don't rent and we don't lease our technology. We sell a licensed platform for use. So pretty neat setup. We'll be doing some demonstrations over at our booth here, which is just behind you later today if you guys want to check anything out. Also available for any questions. All of my contact information's here. If you just have a couple questions, you're interested in getting my feedback on something you're doing, regardless if you're a client or not, please feel free to reach out. We try to take as much of an education approach as we can. We're the company behind the NIADA, which is the National Independent Automobile Dealers Association. We built 16 of their state association sites. We also manage all the content for Ken Shilson with NABD. So we're very well versed in the industry, and we understand what's happening everywhere from standard used cars to the most deeply buried buy here, pay here dealer in the industry. So we can generally help you out. And I guess with that, if anybody has any questions, I'll take a couple questions here, and we're going to wrap up a few minutes early before the next speaker comes up. Nope. Good. Excellent. Got one in the back? Great question. Your question is why is there such a difference between Google search results in Google in Maps rather than the native app? A lot of it comes down to that comfort factor. As individuals and users, we get used to these apps. These apps are like our toys almost, so to speak. And so it's just a natural go-to to go to that piece. A lot of it has to do with that native app being that primary point of use on a mobile device. Not as many people from a smartphone or cell phone are going to go to their web browser to do a search and then click into Google Maps versus going directly to that Google Maps app, which is going to be that instant firing point. The neat thing about that too is that on the Google Maps native app, as soon as you launch it, you immediately have a pin drop of exactly where you are in reality of the world. Okay, when you start a Google search, it's a generality, and it narrows down to your refinement. So that's another big key factor. The other thing too is that voice search function. A lot of people are utilizing that preemptively into the other methods, even more so than just using the Google search box you have on the homepage of your device. So that's going to be that big key factor, and that's why you see 70% of those local searches are being done through that mobile app, mostly because it's real time. I've even used it personally myself in my local neighborhood. Just fire it up, just get a pinpoint, and it's live, showing me what's around me. And you just go for a walk with the dog, and you know exactly what's around you, new coffee shop that popped up, or what's going on around you. So it's become more of just a standardized piece. And I would have to say that's the primary reason that you're seeing a much higher rate of search in that app. And it is definitely important to make sure you're optimized for that. Obviously, in order to be optimized for the app, like I said, Google's relying upon their data sets of what they have. They're looking at the data that they have within their networks. They're not trying to go out to some other place and scrape data. It's easier for them to connect in their network to what they have. So if you can provide them with everything that they need to have that accurate information about you, you're gonna have that heads up on everybody else. And honestly, guys, most of it comes down to time. There's a lot of dealers that put so much time and effort into the rest of their business. I hate to use the word lazy because it's probably a bad variable, but we don't put enough precedence on some of the things that are important, like making sure that Google has our right information. And then you get upset that the guy down the street's kicking your butt every time somebody does a search. Well, what did you do proactively to prevent that? A little bit of maintenance here and there. And you don't have to tackle this all at once. I mean, I'm not saying go home and spend the next 3 days locked at your desk filling out all these profiles, but set a schedule. Spend an hour a week going through and filling this stuff out. Another thing that I'll recommend as well too, there's a really great service out there. It's called Yext, Y-E-X-T, if you want to write this down. They are a paid service, very affordable, but it's kind of a new hybrid technology. Not only do they help you manage all of your business directory listings, which is a huge, huge factor. If you think about how important this is, let's say you potentially did a search for your business and your website was number one. Let's say you get to the number one position in Google. Great. So your website's the number one organic position. And let's say the other 9 results are all of your business directory listings. How terrible would that be to be the entire first page of Google? What did it cost you? Has Google ever sent you a bill for an organic result? No. I mean, you have to put a little bit of time in. So take the energy and effort and put a little work in. Yext will do that for you. And the neat thing about it is that Yext is integrated directly at an API level, meaning they have real-time communication without any delay to the top 70 business directory listings that exist, including BDL for Facebook, Google My Business, which is probably the most important one. They also have a really neat dashboard system as well that a lot of you probably could benefit from, even if you don't want to mess with the business directory listings, you need to keep your social networks updated. Well, they have a dashboard that's all built in so that you can manage not only your data that's going out to your BDLs, but all of the posts that you want to schedule in advance or what content you're posting out to your social networks. So it's kind of an all-in-one piece. So it's definitely worth checking out. There is some cost involved with it. If you're looking for a free alternative, a really great one for managing just your social networks is Hootsuite. Just like an owl, Hootsuite. And basically what it is, it's a social media dashboard. It's one hub that you guys can create an account for, and this is great for you as a business owner. You can then plug in all of the different credentials for your various social networks, Facebook, Twitter, everything else into this one dashboard. Keeps all those credentials secure, so now you don't have to feel worried about letting a staff member employee have access to those accounts because they just have access to the dashboard. You fire them, you change the password, and you're good to go. The neat thing about it is it lets you pre-schedule all of the content. If you don't consistently post good, viable content that people are interested in, you're kind of wasting the opportunity with your social network. And so a lot of us, again, don't have time to do that. Well, if you have an hour a week, you can find some great articles or bits and pieces here and there, plug them into a scheduled calendar system, and it just drips them out for you. Does all of the work. Makes you look like a 12-man team and you're one guy spending an hour a week. The other cool thing about it is the free version will let you manage up to 3 social networks. And for most auto dealers, really all you need is 3. Facebook, probably Twitter, if you want to do some work on there. The other one's going to be Instagram. And you say, well, why Instagram? Well, guess what? How many times have you wished that you could post up some pictures of your happy customers or make it easier to share? Guess what? There you go. Set up a business Instagram account. Let your staff members do the work for you. They sign out of their personal Instagram account, which is great for you. You know, they're not messing around on it. They plug in your credentials. So as they're at the dealership for the day, working in the service department or selling a car, they're taking a picture with Bob or John or Sally or whomever it is. It's going directly on your feed. Now you have it as a record. Also allows that consumer to easily share it to their friends and family and everybody else. So all three of those can be managed completely free through Hootsuite. You can set up one post. It'll show you which portions of it will go to each network, because obviously there's limitations in character size and whatnot. The other cool thing is that it even has a feed input of RSS or syndicated information. So you fill a little bit of information of industry things that might pertain to you, whether it's automotive repair or service or financing. And so it gathers all of this stuff. And so as you're in your back end office, says, hey, we found all of this great information about these lines of industry. Did you want to post any of it? You check box it and set which day you want. It spits it out. It's pretty easy. So there's definitely opportunities there for you. Hootsuite, great one. Yext is another great one, obviously. Paid service, but that's going to help you manage not only those BDLs, which is more important now than ever, as well as some of that social media content. So those will both be really great points to focus on. What topics do we go into in more? What sites do I use to determine my data? Well, that's a great question. There's a lot of great content out there. The best one, though, is my own client base. If I have 1,700 clients and I can do beta testing with them in real time and see what works and doesn't work, I'm building my own handbook of what I know physically functions. You could take 10 guys that say they're great in SEO, put them in a room, and 9 of them are going to come out bloody because everybody has a different idea. Everybody claims this is what you're supposed to do. I base all of my input on real-time testing with my client base, as well as information like I mentioned. We just got back from SMX conference. Great input there from heads of state from Google, Bing, Microsoft. Everybody was there. Great stuff. But there's a lot of resources. One of the things that I typically do anytime I'm working with a client or we're looking to even potentially work with them with our services and products, so I always start out with a review. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you need to do something or needs to be like this until they know what it is you're doing and what can be adjusted. So we always start with a review. You want to find out what they're doing, how well that's working, what areas they want to target. The first thing we do is we work up an entire SERP, or search engine rank placement report. I can take all the metadata and keywords in your website and I can tell you exactly what phrases and terms you're physically showing up for, what page, what number it is, and give you a complete stylization of where you're at, a complete scope of that process. From there, we can help you build a perfect plan for whatever it is that you're looking to do, whatever it is that you need to achieve. Every plan's a little bit different. Every dealer is a little bit different. Every market area is different. The one common denominator is that you have about 78% of the population, no matter where you're at, is online. If we know that many people are online, we can find better areas to target. We want to target the most populated areas online. Cities, maybe not be the city that you're in, but maybe it's a neighboring city. It's 5 minutes away that has a bigger audience. Google doesn't see that barrier. Google's just a search term. So, all right. Anything else? I think with that, we've got about 10 minutes left. You have a question?
What if your primary market is not local?
Nationwide. That's a great question. Okay, so our question is, how does this apply to me as far as local search if I'm more nationwide? This is actually one of the topics that came up at the SMX conference, and this is what the group effort input was on that. And basically what they said is with large companies like, for instance, Hertz Rental or places of that nature where they're nationwide, in order to still stay relevant, what they found is that they had to create a presence locally, which meant setting up a Facebook page for that local location that talked about that local location that had corporate branding on it, but making sure that there was still a presence for that. Creating a footprint in all of the areas that you're catering to then unifies that as a body. It's great to still have that marketing prospectus for your nationwide hub of who your brand is, but that's going to be about your brand, right? It's going to be about what you represent, what it is. People are 9 times more likely to interact with that local level for your brand than they are the national. Perfect example of that. If I'm here in Dallas and let's say I had a problem with Hertz Rental, I'm more likely to contact the local market area hub for that complaint than I am to go to nationals, because it feels to me like my voice is getting heard. I'm going to go to that Facebook page and rant about what's going on because my neighbor potentially could see that, or other people in the local area are going to see that's going to affect their business there. And that's the mentality of the consumer base that we're interacting with. So my advice would be locals is still going to be important. It's not going anywhere because we know that's what the consumers are searching for. That's what they're going to interact with. So we have to adapt to that. It's not our choice to just choose what we want. We have to follow the fish. The fish in the pond move to the other side of the lake. We got to go to the other side of the lake. It's just a matter of adapting to that. If you continue to focus on the local search in the ways that we talked about from that perspective, you'll still have a winning recipe. Awesome. Good deal, guys. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I hope everybody got some good information, had some things to take away. Take a quick break here so everybody can grab some coffee, take a bathroom break, whatever's needed, and we'll get on to the next speaker. Thank you again. My name is Chris Jackson. If you have any questions, I'll be available later.